What's up, everybody? Benji Bruce here, Speaking Lifestyle. Today we are going to talk about how do you build to 7 figures in your speaking business? How do you scale your speaking business to a 7-figure speaking business? Like, what exactly do you do? So that's what we're going to talk about today. To be honest, it's not that hard, especially with speaking, because the things that you do to make 6 figures is practically the same things you're going to be doing to make 7 figures in your speaking business. And so I just want to talk about that real quick in terms of what changes you need to make, how you need to think about this whole thing. How do you build a 7-figure speaking business? It's not enough to just have 6 figures. Why not go for 7? You might as well, right? So let's just see who's hopping on real quick. If this thing will load, man, this iPad thing has been acting up. Facebook's not loading on this thing anymore. So I'm assuming we got 1 billion people who hopped on, maybe 2 billion, 3 billion who's hopping on. I can't really see what the real numbers, so I don't know. It's probably more like 5 billion, maybe 10 billion or something like that. But today we're going to talk about how do you actually scale your speaking business to 7 figures. You want to think in terms of, to get to 1 million, all you really need to do is figure out the product to market fit. That's what you're ultimately trying to do to get to 1 million. After that, you got to do all the other stuff. But to hit 1 million, you're literally just trying to figure out a product to market fit. And let's restart this Facebook thing. Man, I can't see all the billions and billions of people who hopped online right now. All right. So we're going to see in terms of getting that product to market fit. That's one of the first things that you do. That's what you have to think. And this is why a lot of speakers, they struggle. Speakers, experts, coaches, consultants, they struggle to get to that point because they think they have a product to market fit when in reality they don't. And this is why when you're trying to sell stuff, people aren't buying. You're wondering, like, what am I doing wrong? And you're looking at other people in the industry that you think are similar to you. You think they're doing the same thing, but in reality, they're doing something completely different. All right, so it's not showing up there. So let me just go, let me go on the computer then. Let's see who's hopping on. I literally almost took this thing and threw it. I literally almost just did that. All right. So let's see. What are some of the comments here? All right. Let's do. So we got that. Let's turn the volume down real quick. All right. He said, feels like just Speak Pro members here. Yeah, Speak Pro members, you guys need to take advantage of these. Speak Pro members, I mean, you guys have any questions in terms of what it is you guys need to be doing? That's what you guys need to be doing. Some Speak Pro members, all right? So let's get that up. All right. So now I can see some comments. There we go. All right. Cool. So what's up, everybody? So I can see the comments. We are good to go. So here's the thing. So in order to hit 1 million, you're thinking more in terms of product to market fit. That's pretty much what you're doing in the beginning. Product to market fit. Are you actually in the right market? Now, I've talked about this before in another video in terms of just scaling your speaking business. You got to think in terms of, does your market even allow you to expand to hit $1 million? If you are in the wrong market, nothing you do will matter. Absolutely nothing you do. You can be the smartest person in the world, but nothing you do will actually matter if you're in the wrong market. So you have to think, is it possible to expand? So for example, when I was doing the online stuff, the first market that I entered was the magician market, selling business advice to magicians. Now, that was absolutely one of the worst markets ever. And the reason it was so bad is just because it was so small. Like, imagine a small market, then imagine a small market of that small market, then imagine the magician business market. Like, it was so small, I don't know what I was thinking at the time. So it was a bad market. No matter what I did, I could not grow that to $1 million. So it was a bad market to begin with. If you are in a bad market, just in general, you won't be able to scale it to 7 figures. So you have to start there in terms of, am I in the right market? My roadblock in the beginning was, as an entertainer, so I'm an entertainer just doing mentalism, right? My roadblock was the fact that entertainers don't get paid as much as speakers. So if you're a motivational speaker, keynote speaker, leadership speaker, sales speaker, you naturally have more value than an entertainer. And I understood this roadblock, which is why I changed it from mentalist to speaker, right? And so understanding little roadblocks that are getting in your way before you actually do the activities, that's what you have to pay attention to a lot of the times. Because it's like, I mean, context in anything, if you don't pay attention to the context, then it's just going to be really hard to do what you want to do. And a lot of people aren't willing to admit this. I mean, there's only so much that your ambition, like there's only, your ambition can only get you so far. It's like, imagine you're Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, right? You're one of these guys, or you're all three of them combined, right? You would think you can build a massive business if you're all three of these guys combined. But what happens if one day freaking you just get thrown in prison, right? All that literally gets destroyed. Your intelligence, everything just gets destroyed. Your ambition, all that, just because the context around you changed from being free to being thrown into jail. And so the same goes with your market in general. You can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't have the right context, if you're not in the right environment, the right market, none of it really matters. And so that's how you really want to think in terms of, to start with, in terms of your 7-figure speaking business. You just can't go too small. When I thought of niche, I thought in terms of like a small market. Like there's a market, sales, and then, all right, let me pick a really small market within that market, selling mammoth water bottles or something. Oh, well, that's probably not a small market, but I picked a small market, the magician business market, right? And so when you think of niche, you simply think in terms of a specific problem within a big market. So you choose a big market like sales. Sales is an unlimited market. It's a multi-billion dollar market. So there's no limit to you as a speaker. So you choose sales. But if you start out by saying, I'm just a sales speaker and things like that, it may be hard for you to actually sell something or to sell a product. On the other hand, if you say, I'm the cold calling expert, right? Or I'm the cold emailing expert, or I'm the CRM expert, or something like that, right? Now you're picking a specific problem within that niche, which is going to help you actually scale to begin with. Because what you do is you dominate a market to begin with, then you expand as you just own that market. And so that's how you need to think from the very get-go. And so it's very similar to what I did with Speaking Lifestyle. In terms of Speaking Lifestyle, I thought speaker training, and I had several things to choose from. There could be public speaking, like presentation skills. There could be getting booked on a stage, getting paid gigs, selling from the stage. And so there's all sorts of things to pick from this big market. But I started out with getting booked, getting paid gigs, because that's what I did my entire life, right? So I just knew it like the back of my hand, right? And so I'm thinking, let me choose that to begin with. So that's what you do with your speaking business in terms of hitting 7 figures. First thing you have to do, if you are a female empowerment speaker, you will not hit 7 figures. I'll tell you that right now. Get out of that market. Don't know why women keep doing this all the time. They keep saying female empowerment. Pick a big market. Just be a motivational speaker, a leadership speaker, a sales speaker. Pick a big market that just doesn't matter in terms of female empowerment, male empowerment, Black Lives Matter. None of that stuff matters. Who cares? Just say, I'm a freaking motivational speaker. Pick a big market to begin with. At this point, you're simply going to do the math in the beginning, right? So you're going to sit there and say, if you charge a $15,000 fee and you do 66 gigs at 67 at a $15,000 fee, you will hit $1 million. So you just got to ask yourself, can you do 67 gigs in 1 year? Can you get yourself booked that many times for 1 year? It is possible. But I would recommend increasing your fees, but you just want to sit down, do the math to begin with. Say, okay, all right, if I charge $15,000, how many gigs do I have to do to actually hit $1 million? Half that, it's like, okay, $15,000, I do 33 gigs, I'll hit 500,000. That is 33 gigs at 15,000. That sounds even more reasonable than 66 gigs at 15,000. So you're sitting there, you're thinking, you're just doing the math with simple things to begin with, and you're asking yourself, can I actually do this? Can I actually get 33 gigs at $15,000 in a year? Can I do that? The answer is yes. You can easily get 33 gigs. You can easily make $500,000 doing that. And so once again, you do the math with a $30,000 gig. So if I charge $30,000, I do 17 gigs, I get $500,000. Can you only do 17 gigs throughout the year? Can you get yourself booked for 17 gigs throughout the year? If you can do a $500,000 charging $30,000. So you're simply doing the math with things like that. And obviously, if you do a $25,000, if you charge $25,000, you're doing 40,000, or you're doing 40 gigs to hit that million. So first thing that you do is you sit down and you do the math. You need to know how many gigs you need to get before you actually hit $1 million or 500,000 or whatever it is you're trying to do. I did this years ago when I was just building the online portion as well. So I said to myself, all right, how many sales do I need to make with this product to hit $1 million? And so I just did the math to begin with. That's where it starts. It's just so your mind kind of wraps around it. That's all you're really doing. Projections don't really mean anything. It's just kind of getting you clear on what it is you need to do. But just because you made a projection, that doesn't really mean anything because you're not actually factoring in reality. Remember the Mike Tyson quote where Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And so that's what happens with projections. Everyone's like, okay, I can do $15,000. I can do 30 gigs. All right. Yeah, that's possible. But then they don't factor in reality. Like as they wake up, they're like, oh, I'm procrastinating, right? Well, they just procrastinate. Then all of a sudden other things happen throughout the day and a medical thing happens. Their car goes down and all these things happen. So they're not factoring that into their work time, which is why they don't actually make it happen. And so the number projections, it just lets you know in terms of where I'm going, but it's still not reality. So just get that, just understand that aspect. You want to get realistic about the execution of the math. That's what you're ultimately trying to do. Just get realistic about the execution of the math. To hit 1 million, you essentially need to have flawless execution. So you're figuring out the product to market match, like product to market fit, and then you have flawless execution. That's what's going to allow you to hit the $1 million. So for all you guys in the Speak Pro, to hit 1 million, it's just a matter of you guys are doing the right things. Like you have everything. You have the resources, the templates, all that stuff. You guys are essentially doing the right things. Now it's a matter of doing those things perfectly. So it's very similar to imagine anyone in any sport, let's say boxing, right? So boxing, these guys are boxing. All these boxers, they understand the techniques. They understand how to throw a punch. They understand how to slip a punch. They understand all these techniques. But then you only have a few who are like Floyd Mayweather, who's just so good, nobody beat him, right? And so you want to think along lines of flawless execution. How do I get to Floyd Mayweather status? Right now, Speak Pro members, you guys are in the game. You guys are boxing. You guys are training. You guys are training. Most people, they're not even in the game. They're just sitting down watching the game. They're just like, oh, that's cool. Oh, yeah, I know that. I know how to throw a punch. That's all most people are doing. You Speak Pro members are in the game. Now you guys, in order to hit 1 million, you want to get to the point where you're like Mayweather status, Muhammad Ali status, Mike Tyson status, Sugar Ray Leonard status. You want to get to that point where it's a flawless execution, and that's ultimately how you're doing it. Let's see. Crystal said, I have a media kit and a resume to send to my contacts, school and universities, for example. How do I present it in a way via email that shows my value to them? All right, so this is like there's a lot that goes into this, Crystal. So, Crystal, I don't know if you're a Speak Pro member or not, but there are email templates inside Speak Pro Academy. So if you want to use those email templates, make sure you use those. That's how you contact the events. But understand that as a speaker, your website is your media kit. There is zero reason to have a PDF, zero whatsoever. If you have a bio, your about page is your bio, by the way. Your media kit, it literally does not make sense nowadays. Imagine someone saying nowadays, yeah, just hit me up on my pager. You'd be like, what? You know there's a such thing as smartphones nowadays, right? Like you would look at them like they're crazy. And the same goes with speakers who have media kits and these press kits and bios. You are operating from a standpoint of when there weren't really websites. You need to update all that. Have a great website. Your website is the media kit. It is the thing that you send people to because that's the thing that they can see the videos and everything on. A media kit, think about it like this. Nobody believes what you say. You can say it. Anyone can create a media kit and say anything about their speech. They can be like, this is the greatest speech of all time. You thought P.T. Barnum was a great showman. Just wait till you see Benji Bruce. And you can type in whatever you want into your media kit. And people know that. They understand you can type in whatever you want on this so-called PDF, which is why they don't believe it. They're like, okay, this dude typed in, it's a funny presentation, it's amazing and all that sort of stuff. I want to see something. That's all they think about. Does he have at least a 10-second clip where I can see how funny this dude is? Does he have something where I can see it? So that's why a media kit is literally useless nowadays. So you need to just focus on your website, get the website to where it looks really great, and then from there, you're contacting the events, the schools, the universities, and everything like that. From there, you're going through the pipeline. So the pipeline, There's the qualifying phase where you found the events, you send out your first email template, and so you're going through the pipeline. Then it goes incoming questions, quote, contract close, and you're walking through that pipeline every single time. But when you actually contact when you contact the events, this is why you need to have the email templates in place in terms of, once again, if you're a Speak Pro member, all the email templates are there. If you're not, you simply create your own email templates. Like, what exactly am I going to say that's going to make them want to click on the link to the website? Your first email, remember your pitch. When you send the email in your pitch, understand the purpose of that is to literally get them to click on a link to your website. It is not to persuade them to pay you $15,000 right then and there, because you're not going to do that. There's no way it's going to happen. They have to see what they're getting, which is the purpose of your website. So you send out the email with the single purpose of getting them to click on a link to your website. Your website does all the heavy lifting in terms of, here's a great speaker, funny, watch the video, and all that sort of stuff. Your website does a heavy lifting. Then they contact you back saying, yeah, we'd love to bring you in. Looks like you're a great speaker. So your website is really doing the heavy lifting. All right. So let's see. Elio, good question. You said, what would be a flawless execution as a speaker? So I just said, to get to 7 figures, what you're doing ultimately is you want to get to flawless execution. So you start product and market fit, and then you get to flawless execution. What I mean by that is similar to what you're saying, like sounding in demand, great looking website, great partnerships. You don't actually need partnerships with bureaus. Like I said, I don't work with any bureaus. And so, yeah, that's what I mean by flawless execution. I tell speakers, all you have to do to get booked, literally the only thing, is have a great website and cold call or cold email, like reach out to events. That's all you have to do. But within each one of those is like a million different things that determines whether or not your website is great. The images on the website, the text, all that sort of stuff. It depends. Well, it determines whether or not your website is great. Then when it comes down to cold emailing or reaching out to people, that is where people do not have the flawless execution. That is one of the reasons why I don't mind giving away so much information, because despite someone knowing they should send an email, they always do it wrong unless they're in the Speak Pro Academy, because you don't sound in demand when you send an email. You're pitching the wrong way. It's too long, all that sort of stuff. And so that's what I mean by flawless execution. It's similar to writing a book, right? Anyone watching this can write a book. Any single person watching this can write a book. But probably none of us can write a freaking Harry Potter book. None of us can write a freaking Stephen King type book, James Patterson type book. None of us can write a book on that level, because they've mastered the execution of actually knowing how to tell a story and write a book in that way. They've mastered the execution. So it's very similar to when people tell me, I cold email, or I got a website, and it's like, I mean, I've reached out to people, but none of them respond. And I say, that's because you're doing it wrong. Or like, I got a website, and I say, well, it doesn't really look good, right? The same goes with if we all wrote a book right now, we would write a book, J.K. Rowling would come in and be like, your book sucks. You need to learn how to write stories. You need to focus on characters. Your book sucks. She probably wouldn't say that. J.K. Rowling seems nice. But basically, that's what I mean by the flawless execution. Is you got to make sure you know how to sound in demand. You got to make sure you know how to pitch you, just like you in general. You got to make sure you know how to create enough curiosity when you're pitching to get them to click on the link to the website. Because right now, the way most speakers do it is they talk about themselves so much that the person isn't interested in any way to actually click on the link to the website. A speaker email an event and they'll say, I'd love to come speak at your event. My story is that I was once homeless, and then we were eating eating food out of the trash can, and then they're telling their whole story in this pitch. And that's what I mean by the execution is just really bad when they do that. And so if you learn how to do flawless execution in everything you do, then you will naturally get better. Like, once again, it's the same thing in terms of any sport. Look at the best of the best in any sport. They simply have flawless execution. If you look at Michael Jordan, Kobe, Mayweather, if you look at all these people in any sports, they can do the same things, or all the other boxers, all the other NBA players, football players, they can all do the same thing. They can throw a football. They can tackle people. They can dribble a basketball. They can shoot the ball. Only a few of them get to the point where it's like freaking Jordan, where they rarely miss. Or it's like Tiger Woods, who can just do amazing stuff when he freaking hits the ball, right? Or Floyd Mayweather, who he just doesn't get hit, right? So only a few can do that. And so what you're doing to get to flawless execution is you're doing it over and over and over again. So you have to understand that it takes longer than you think, and it's a lot harder than you think, which is why you need to move fast. You simply move fast. That's what's going to allow you to get to flawless execution. Remember the 10,000 hour rule? The 10,000 hour rule, that's the 10,000 hours to actually master something. You want to get to that 10,000 hours by working nonstop. It's one of the reasons why the speakers who only send 5 emails a day absolutely, positively will not win compared to a speaker who sends 100 emails a day. A speaker who sends 100 emails a day, despite not knowing what to do, will always beat the guy who sends 5 emails a day. Even if he knows more about sales, persuasion, marketing, he will always lose every single time. It's just like practicing any sport. If the guy who spends 1 hour a day practicing versus the guy who spends 20 hours a day practicing, this guy's going to win every single time. And it's just because the amount of time that's put into it. So when you go faster, you will naturally learn how to execute faster. It's like in the beginning, when you buy a CRM, you don't really know how to work the thing. You're like, I don't really know how to do this thing. So you're just playing around with it. But the more you play around with it, the more easy it becomes. Next thing you know, you're freaking do it with your eyes closed. Like, bam, bam, got him. Oh, copy, got him. Right. And so you're doing it with your eyes closed. So that's why you have to move fast. You can hit 1 million in your speaking business without actually systematizing a lot of things. It's best if you systematize stuff, but you just want to think in terms of high speaking fees plus high levels of activity equal 1 million. That's what it comes down to in your speaking business. So the more you charge, the more you do, the more likely you're going to hit 1 million. I mean, it's actually inevitable to hit 1 million. You want to think along the lines of, you do want to systematize, because when you systematize, you're becoming efficient and effective. In the beginning, if you're not systematizing, you're effective because you're just doing a lot. That's why, like in the beginning, when I didn't really have a system, because there weren't too many people out there teaching anything, and if they did teach, they were teaching basic stuff like get referrals and just do a good job, and then people will love you and hire you. So they were teaching basic stuff that didn't really build. And so in the beginning, I wasn't effective in any way, like literally zero. But I was efficient because of how fast I was going and how many times I emailed every single day. Because of that, it worked. And then I naturally learned what works, what doesn't work. And I started becoming more efficient. But in the beginning, you're just doing a lot. You're like, what the hell works, right? You're just doing a lot. And then eventually you kind of figure out, hey, this thing works or it doesn't work. So that's kind of what's happening in the beginning. In terms of actually scaling to 7 figures. What you're trying to do, and this is why I keep telling everybody, you have to focus on the one thing. So there are multiple things that work. So like, let's say, like a lot of people, they want to be the experts, right? And every single time someone tells me they want to be an expert, they got to do a podcast, they want to get on stages, all that sort of stuff, I tell them, no. Pick one first, do that until you hit a certain amount, then go to something else. Because you have to understand that with everything you do, there's a mastery process to it. So once again, imagine boxing, right? So boxing, you got your jab, right? You're just throwing your jab. Then you got your hook, right? And it's like you have to master each one of those. The jab, you're mastering your jab, and then you got to master the hook. And so if you try to do all of them, like imagine that, well, I guess boxing you technically can, because boxing, but when it comes to business, you can't do all of them at once. But if you just focus on mastering the jab first, you'll get that down. Let's say it takes 1,000 hits to master the jab. Of course, it takes way more, but imagine 1,000 times. You just got to do this 1,000 times. Once you do that 1,000 times, you are the master of the jab. Your jab is going to be so freaking hard that you could freaking punch Superman and he'll die, right? So you're like, I got to do this 1,000 times. But imagine you're doing this, and on the 10th time, you're like, oh, all right, I got to master my hook too. So you're like, all right, let me do the hook. So now you're trying to do the hook, right? But after about 15 times, you stop. You go, okay, let me go back to the jab, right? So neither one of them, you won't accomplish anything in a short amount of time with either one of them because you're going back and forth between them. Same goes with you trying to scale to 7 figures. If you're trying to do a podcast, webinars, get paid gigs through outreach, try to do Google ads, if you're trying to do all this stuff, then you're not going to master any one of them. You have to understand that when it comes to mastering something like cold emailing, there's a lot of things you got to do. You got to learn how to sound in demand. You got to learn the actual pitch, like how you pitch yourself. You got to learn how to send out the mass email in a way where it doesn't seem like a mass email. It seems like each and every individual is getting one email. You got to learn the CRM. You got to learn your way around the CRM, how to set the follow-ups, all that sort of stuff just with sending an email. And so if you're sending out emails and you're trying to create content with podcasts, webinars, and all this stuff, you will naturally take way too long to get the cold email process down to hit $1 million. And so you have to simply say, I know this thing works, aka outreach. Let me master this thing, the cold emailing. Even with outreach, right? You can simply say, do I want to master cold calling or cold emailing? Because the two have different skills. If you're calling on the phone, you got to sound in demand. And if you're writing an email, you got to sound in demand in terms of the email. But if you're on the phone, it's a lot easier to sound in demand on the phone, right? So you got to master each one of these skills in terms of actually hitting that million. In order to hit $1 million, you want to think along the lines of going after the highest paying gigs as fast as possible. So this is when, in the beginning, like I mentioned this before, where to hit $1 million is a matter of the execution regardless of how efficient you are. The more efficient you are, the better, or effective. Yeah, so it's like if you just do enough, you can hit the $1 million. It's better to be efficient and effective at the same time. That way you don't have to do a lot to hit $1 million. So it's one of the reasons why you see guys who can work 6 hours a day and they can actually make $1 million. Then you see someone who works 20 hours a day and they're struggling despite working more. It's because a person who works 6 hours a day, they're efficient and effective at the same time. And so in the beginning, it is about the numbers, even though you want to get more efficient and effective at the same time. But what I did in the beginning is the advice was increase your fees when there's like so much demand that you just, like the demand is crazy, and at that point you increase your fees. That's what I followed for a while. I was like, okay, I'll charge $200 for this show, and then once I do a lot of shows, I've got like freaking 100 shows lined up, then I'll increase my fees to $500, right? So that was the mindset that I had in the beginning. Eventually I realized that is the dumbest thing ever. It's almost like it's the difference between someone who buys a Ferrari and someone who buys a Hyundai, right? A person who buys a car, they don't say, let me first buy the Hyundai because, I got to take it in steps, right? I can't just jump. I can't just go up to the Ferrari. I got to take it in steps, right? So you're like, let me buy a Hyundai. And then after I use that for a year, then I'll buy a Ferrari. That's not how it works. A person who can buy a Ferrari, they just freaking buy a Ferrari. And you got to think the same way with your fees. When you charge $1,000, $2,000 for a gig, you can simply say, forget charging $1,000, $2,000. I'm just going to go straight to $20,000. Like you can literally do that as long as you look like you're worth $20,000, right? But there's no such thing as increasing your fees incrementally. You literally just say $20,000, $15,000, $30,000. You literally just say that because the markets are very, very different. And so imagine the $2,000 market is a Hyundai, the freaking $20,000 market is the Ferrari. So you don't need to go to the Hyundai first. You can simply say $15,000, $20,000. You can simply jump. That's what you do. Because remember, in terms of the numbers, remember if you charge let's imagine you charge $500,000. How many shows do you have to do? How many events do you have to do to hit 1 million? You do 2, right? Just because you charged more. The more you charge, the less gigs you have to get yourself booked. And on top of that, you're doing the same things, literally the same daily activities you do to get a $2,500 gig is the same daily activities you do to get a $25,000 gig. Literally the same thing. You're reaching out to events, you're finding events, putting them into the CRM, you're reaching out with the email template, same exact thing, literally, which is why it makes no sense to start low. The only time you need to start low is if you look like, if you don't look like you're worth what you're asking for. So you can easily jump to 20 grand as long as you look like you're worth 20 grand, but that's a whole other thing. What's going to happen is you're going to hit a wall around the $250,000 mark, or for sure around the $500,000 mark. That's what's going to happen. So you're going to be doing all this stuff, reaching out to events, cold emailing, cold calling, whatever it is you need to do. You're going to be reaching out. You're going to hit a wall. It's usually at the $250,000 mark. And the reason you hit this mark is because, once again, you're trading your time for money, technically. So you're trading time for money. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. Nothing wrong. But you're trading time for money, and what's going to happen is there's only a certain amount of time throughout the day. So you're cold emailing, you're sitting down at CRM, finding events, cold emailing, cold calling if you want, but you're cold emailing, you're putting them into the CRM, you're putting them through the Yesware, through the pipeline, all that sort of stuff, right? So you're doing all that. And then you go to sleep. But because you're charging $5,000, you will hit that limit in terms of, all right, I work 12 hours a day, I'm doing all this work, and then by the end of the year, I hit $250,000 or $500,000 or something, right? And so this is why, in terms of actually getting around that mark, there's a couple things you can do. Either one, you increase your fees, which is what I already said, in terms of just charging more if you want to get around it. Or two, you simply sell something else, right? This is what I did, by the way. So I went from, all right, I'm just doing the events, I'm just speaking, performing at these events. At a certain point, I felt like I hit a wall. I was like, okay. I was like, all right. I kind of hit a wall at that point. Like the amount of work that I was putting in, and then it just stagnated, literally. And I was like, okay, well, what do I got to do? At this point, you're trying to separate your time from your money at this point. That's how you really take it up a notch. But you're trying to separate your time from your money, so you sell something else. Selling a book, by the way, it isn't enough. So for those of you speakers with a book, it's not enough to get you to that next level, because once again, it's only $10. Like $10, even if it's an expensive ass book, $30 max, right? So it's not enough. And so you have to think, what else can I sell that's going to be really, really expensive? So for example, a workshop. If you charge $30,000 for a workshop, right? So a simple workshop, hosting your own events, you can host your own events, an online program, things like that. That's going to allow you to get past your bump. This is why I tell everyone in the beginning, remember, you're just focusing on one thing. You're saying, all I'm going to do is get paid gigs. The way I do that is with the website and then doing outreach. So you focus on those things. You hit $500,000 doing that. Then at a certain point, you say, okay, well, once I hit $500,000, then I'm going to add an online program to this whole thing, to this whole speaking business. And then once I do $1 million with the online program, then I'm going to add my own events to the thing, right? So that's what you're doing ultimately. You simply say, I'm going to get paid gigs until I hit $250,000 or $500,000. I'm going to do that. Once I do that, then I'm going to add other things on top of it. You do not add on top of it at the same time, because once again, let's say you add an online program, right? So you're like, I'm a sales speaker. I'm going to go out, speak at all these sales events. Bam, you're freaking outreaching. I mean, you're cold calling, cold emailing. You're just owning that crap, right? And then all of a sudden you hit the wall. You're like, all right, let me add an online program. So you add the online program. Well, now because you've mastered the cold emailing, you know exactly how to do it. You can do it in your sleep. Then you learn the online program stuff. How do I actually build out the online program? How do I protect the content? What is this thing they call a landing page? What's this stupid thing called a funnel? And so you're learning all this stuff with the online portion. And that's why you focus on one at a time, because the daily activities are very different. But in terms of actually doing, once you get stuck, in terms of what do you do next, you're simply thinking in terms of, now let me add something else that's insanely expensive, or something like an online program that may not be more expensive, but it separates your time from your money. So you simply make money despite not actually spending time on it, like literally there. You literally don't have to be there for that to happen. You want to start using your money to get time back. That's what you're doing at a certain point. Once you feel like you're stuck, you have to start using money to get your time back. Whether you pay people, like you hire a VA or whatever, and now the VA starts prospecting more for you, you're getting your time back so you can do other things, or whether you just automate stuff with systems that you have that you can automate and all that. So you're simply using money to get your time back. All right. In the beginning, you use your time to get money. That's what's happening in the beginning. In the beginning of anything that you do, you're simply saying, all right, let me sit down, figure out how to build a website. Let me sit down, figure out how to do outreach, cold email, cold call, whatever it is I need to do. You're sitting down, you're spending your time to make the money. And then eventually you get to the point where you reach that limit. And then that's when you step back and say, all right, how do I actually separate the time for the money? Let me do the online programs, or let me just charge a lot more. Once again, you still are using your time to get money, but at that point, you're simply hiring somebody to do the prospecting for you, things like that. You have to understand that you on a stage is 1% of growing your speaking business to $1 million. Like you actually speaking on a stage, that is 1.5% of you actually growing to $1 million. The rest of your time, the 99%, is really spent on all the other things, the cold email and the making your website better with the images and all that stuff. That's where most of your time is actually being spent. All right. Ultimately, a message to market match will allow you to hit $1 million in anything you do, whether it's speaking, whether it's building an online program. That's what's going to allow you to hit $1 million is a message to market match. You're simply asking yourself, are you actually selling what they're buying? That's what you're truly doing. Once again, it comes back to what I said in the beginning, where I said, if you're in the wrong market, nothing you do will matter. And so you have to simply ask yourself, am I actually selling the right thing to the right market? And you have to keep asking yourself that. You cannot close your mind off thinking just because I booked a gig, hey, I'm in the right market. That's not how it works. Anyone can sell damn near anything. I mean, it can be the dumbest freaking product. Somebody can sell that to somebody. And so just because you sold it to one person or two people, that doesn't mean you will actually make $1 million off this product or service. Same goes with speaking. It's like when people say, my speaking topic is, the Apple Watch, how to use the Apple Watch with a RE27 microphone, right? It's like it's a small market, and then you're sitting there thinking, like, no, that market's not going to work. Then they book a gig. I got a gig off of it. I got a gig, right? You're like, see, this works. Benji told you it works. It's like, well, you only got one gig there, maybe two. After you get about 100, like get 50 a year, and then we'll talk, right? And so you want to think along the lines of that message to market match. What you're doing as you're going is you want to systematize your business. For those of you Speak Pro members, you guys already have all the systems. All you got to do is just implement the systems. If you aren't a Speak Pro member, you have to figure all this stuff out yourself. It will take you a long time. Trust me on this one. It will take you a really long time to figure out how to systematize your speaking business. And so as you go, though, here's what you're doing. When you cold email, when you go into your CRM, all that sort of stuff, when you're doing all that, you're recording everything you're doing and you're trying to learn from everything you do. So when you send out an email and you're emailing and they don't respond, you go back at the end of the day and look at all your emails. Look at the ones people responded to. Look at the ones people ignored. Look at the pitches. Look at the entire email conversations you're having with people. When people book you, look at their events. Like, see, okay, how far in advance did they book me with their event? What exactly is their event about? And, are there multiple speakers? Am I the main speaker? So you're looking at all this stuff. That way you can systematize it as you go. And you realize, like, okay, these are the events that hire me the most. This is going to be my lead score. And you're realizing that as you go. You simply want to think in terms of the way you know you systematize something is when you can teach it to somebody else. If you can't teach what you're doing to somebody else, you don't know what you're doing, and you definitely haven't systematized a thing. And so that's how you really want to think in terms of whether or not your business is actually systematized. You have to ignore the shiny object syndrome. I think, like, the more I think about this, like, all right, why do people hit 1 million? Why do people not hit 1 million? The more I realize that you are in your own way. That is why you aren't where you want to be. It's because before you hit 1 million, you're always in your own way with procrastinating, shiny object syndrome, especially with speakers, because there's just so much going on. Speakers following Gary Vaynerchuk, all these guys. So everybody's telling you to do different things, right? And so it's this shiny object syndrome where everything works. And because everything works, you don't know which one to do first. So you end up doing all of them at the same time, which just makes it worse. So you have to ignore the shiny object syndrome. You have to know that webinars work. 100% webinars will make you money. You have to know that. At the same time, you have to say, I'm not going to do that. And so you have to think, Warren Buffett, he does this really well. He talks about the whole opportunity cost, all that sort of stuff. He's like, all right, when we have extra money to put into stocks, he's like, I don't ask myself, like, should I put this into this new stock? He's like, I don't say that. I first say, if I have extra money, why don't I put this extra money into the stocks that we already own? Like, we already own, I don't know if they own Coca-Cola, but he definitely doesn't own Coca-Cola, but he has stocks in Coca-Cola. So he's like, well, if I already like Coca-Cola, I already have stocks in there, why not just throw more money in there instead of just going to something new? And the same goes with you as a speaker, to where Warren Buffett knows he can probably make money over here with this new stock. You know you can make money over here with a webinar, but you don't do it. And that takes a lot of discipline to not do that. And so you have to get rid of this whole shiny object syndrome until you master your one thing. You say, I'm going to do this until I hit $250,000 or $500,000. After that, I'm going to do this thing. That's how you really want to do it. Okay. And then at this point, you got to understand that you have to spend time with people who can pay you. Do not spend time with other speakers or entertainers. There's literally zero reason to spend any time with them. They simply cannot pay you. Sure, you always hear the whole thing of, well, I mean, if they can't do a gig, they can refer it to you. I have yet to see damn near any speaker busy enough to do that. Like, no speaker is busy enough to keep recommending you gigs to where you're busy too. Just doesn't happen, right? And if they are that busy, they're not hanging around other speakers. They're just not, because they're too busy doing what they need to do to get all that business. And so you want to hang around and associate with people who can pay you. I never read anything about speakers, from speakers, none of that. I always read articles from websites like bizbash.com, meetings, conventions, right? I always read stuff by the people who can hire me. I hung around the people who can hire me. That's what you have to do if you want to actually scale your business. You have to truly get out of your own way. Procrastination, a lack of knowledge, all this stuff, a lack of urgency, you being too comfortable, you have to get out of your own way. Self-doubt, little discipline, all that stuff is stopping you from hitting $1 million in your speaking business. Scaling to $1 million is not that hard. It's just a matter of getting out of your own way. All you Speak Pro members, you already know what to do. It is there. It is literally there in the Speak Pro Academy, the systems, everything, the templates, everything is there. It is literally a speaking business franchise, right? It is literally all there. Now it's a matter of, can you get rid of that self-doubt? Can you have that insane level of discipline, like scheduling your days and sticking to it? Can you have that? Can you ignore the shiny object syndrome? All that sort of stuff. If you can't, you will have a hard time scaling to 7 figures. Scaling to 7 figures, like I said, it's the same thing as making 100,000 in speaking, as making 1 million in speaking. Same thing. It's simply a matter of the execution. That's what it's coming down to. All you're doing is you're reaching out to events through cold email, cold calling, however you want to do it. You're reaching out to the events, and then you're just doing more, getting more efficient, more effective with it. And bam, before you know it, you'll at least hit $500,000. Like, before you know it, you'll at least hit that. And then once you feel that I'm stuck phase, like once let's say you hit 500,000, that's when you add on extra things. You add on a workshop, you add on your own events, you add on an online program. That's how you actually scale to 7 figures. There's no tactic or technique as different from 100,000 to 1 million. There's no tactic or technique that's different. Let's see, what are some of the comments here? So let's see, you said, what are some good subject titles for the email, for people who open the email? So Tammy, you're a Speak Pro member. If you go to the email templates, look at those. The subject title that you want to have is always the name of their event. So it's either the name of their event or the name of the company. And so that's what you're doing with the subject line. All right, so let's see. Tammy said, ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. Yeah, exactly. I like that. I like that one. Yeah, ignorance on fire. That's what I meant in terms of the level of execution is one of the reasons why dumb people tend to outdo smart people, because dumb people, they're too dumb to think about the things they do. So they just do stuff. And because they did stuff, they naturally got stuff. Whereas the smart person, they're thinking about the things they should be doing and they're not doing anything. And so they get to the point where it's like, oh, I know that. They're not doing anything with it. And so, the ignorance on fire, better than knowledge on ice. It's one of the reasons why in the beginning, I literally did not know a damn thing in terms of what it is I should do, what I was doing, didn't know anything, didn't really know how to use CRM effectively, none of that stuff. I was just like, let me send out a gazillion emails a day. Because I knew if I contacted people all day, every day, somebody had to hire me. Despite how bad my website was, somebody had to throw in a little pity to this guy, Benji Bruce here. Someone probably, they're like, oh, we feel sorry for this dude. Let's just give him a gig. At least give it to him for free or something. I knew something like that was going to happen if I contacted enough people. And then eventually I started getting more efficient with it. But once again, the only reason I was able to do it is just because I just did more than everybody else. All right. So let's see. Richard said, I've downloaded Divi. Can I hire someone to help me set this all up? It is very far out of my zone. You can go inside the Divi page and then ask anybody in there if you can hire somebody, or you may have to go around it because I think they don't want people to post like job postings inside of there. But yeah, just send Divi an email and I'm sure they got people. Let's see. Kathy said, got my email templates in Yesware. Got to tweak them now. Yep. And so let's see. Elio said, what do I need to change in order to go from 2.5 to 10K? Elio, the only thing you need to change is you need to start asking for it. It's literally because, I know your website and everything, so I already know you have a good website. So the only thing you have to change, you got to start asking for it. You got to change your level of confidence in asking for it. It's one of the things where when I created the video a while ago where I said, how do you actually increase your fees? And the very last thing I said is you got to ask for it. The reason why speakers don't get high fees is because they just don't ask for it. That's literally why. What I did when I was increasing my fees is I had my normal fee, let's say $2,500. I'm like, how do I get the $10,000 gig, right? All I literally did is every single person who contacted me, it was like either or. So this person contacted me. All right, I'm going to say $2,500 to you. Next person who contacts me, I'm going to say $10,000 to you. All right. Next person contacts me, $2,500. Next person, $10,000. And I just kept doing that back and forth. And that's what I just did all the time. And then eventually people kept saying yes. Like I got people to say yes, yes. And I started increasing over and over again. Right. And so the only thing that you have to do, Elio, is literally ask for it. You got to start asking for it more and more. And it also depends on how many people you're really contacting as well. So let's see. Tammy said, does the website look like a $20,000 speaker? Let's see. Let's let this thing load. So let's see. No, not a $20,000 speaker because. So let's do this. All right, so not a $20,000 speaker, just because you want to think along the lines of like here. I wouldn't say a $20,000 speaker, but once again, in terms of like here, I would change this video thumbnail. Like it wouldn't just be you and him. There would be like an audience or something there, but yeah, like your website is definitely way better than what it was for sure. Hands down. No doubt about that. And so like little things, I would change these thumbnails here. So these thumbnails would be better. So like let me show you Elio's website in terms of like, all right, so these are normal thumbnails, just here, normal thumbnails. But then you look at Elio's thumbnails for his video testimonials. You see these? It's like these thumbnails here, they look a lot better than a regular thumbnail like this. And this is what I mean by flawless execution. Anyone can say, I've got video testimonials on my website. Like someone can say, I put video testimonials. But then there's the execution here where Elio executed a little bit better by having these thumbnails that look more effective, right? It just look cooler. So that's what I mean by flawless execution. Two people can be doing the same things, but one of them just does it better. The same goes like, that's what I meant by boxing, any sport. Sure, every single, let's say every single basketball player, they can do the same things, but then there's Michael Jordan who just does it better. And so you want to think, how do I do it better? Because you got to understand, you are competing. Like you're literally competing with everybody. You're competing with everybody. If you're an expert, you're trying to do podcasts, all that stuff, you're competing with every single expert out there. Fitness trainer, a real estate expert, a coach, consultant, speaker. You're competing with every expert out there. At least if you're a speaker, you're only competing with other speakers technically. But still, you got to think along the lines of the flawless execution with what you're doing. All right. But also understand, in order to look like a $20,000 speaker or any type of speaker, it's just a matter of the way you're going to figure that out is by doing more. So remember how I said move fast, because when you move fast, you start to see the small details. You start to see, oh yeah, Elio's thumbnails look a lot cooler than mine, so let me do something like that. Let me update the images and things like that. And it's only because you're moving fast. It's only because you're like, how do I keep getting better? How do I get better? How do I get better? And it's because you move fast, which allows you to get to the flawless execution, the 10,000 hour rule. All right. So let's see. Alex said, speakers get together and talk about their platform, waste of time. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Sherry said, become a master because the lack of knowledge slows you down. Yep. All right. So we got that. All right. Yeah. And so especially with the website, by the way, so like the website, let's see. So like Richard said, how it's out of your comfort zone, right? You got to think in terms of, especially with the website or anything you do, in the beginning, it's always out of your comfort zone. Like in the beginning, you don't know a damn thing about the thing. You're like, how do I build this freaking website? What the hell? Benji said it was easy. What the hell is he talking about? Right. And so in the beginning, you're always uncomfortable with what it is you're doing. Like knowing how to do CRM, knowing how to do the website. But when you move fast, you get better at it. Just like, let's say Divi, right? So Richard, right now you're uncomfortable with it just because you haven't used Divi. But imagine this. Imagine if you sat down all day, every day for 2 weeks straight. 2 weeks straight just doing Divi. You will become a master at Divi. You'll be like, shoot, I know all this. You freaking build a bomb-ass website with Divi because you sat down and you just did it. You just moved faster than someone who, let's say they would go in, look at Divi, be like, oh my goodness, get all scared and go do something else, and they come back to it, work on it for 30 minutes. Oh, all right, this is too much right now. And then they go off, do something else, come back a week later. All right, work for an hour. How do I do it? What the hell? Right? And so you will naturally do it a lot faster just by literally sitting down and spend all day, every day doing this thing versus the person who just comes back to it every now and again. And so same goes with the website. Actually, yeah, Elio just mentioned it. See, before the Speak Pro Academy, his website sucked. It really did suck, by the way, guys. His website was pretty bad. Like, I was like, Elio, man, come on. Like, it was pretty bad. And so before his website, it was bad. Then he changed it, right? So he changed it. Elio's website did not look like what it looks like now, even when he changed it. Even when he joined the Speak Pro Academy, he updated the site. He was like, what do you think of this? I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Still keep working on it, right? I just kept doing that all the time. And it wasn't until recently when Elio's website's like, all right, now it looks really, really good, right? And so that's what's happening with the websites, with the CRMs and all that sort of stuff, where you're sitting there and you change it, but you didn't really know how to make it look flat out amazing, or you just didn't have the material to make it amazing. Like you just didn't have the videos, the pictures, you didn't have all that stuff yet. So it can't look amazing no matter what. And so you're working on your website, you make it as good as possible. That allows you to book a $5,000 gig. And then that $5,000 gig, you now update with testimonials, videos, all that sort of stuff. You update the website and so on. You just get better and better and better at building your website, at just knowing what to look for with your website. Is one of the reasons why the website is probably the hardest thing to teach speakers, because it's like graphic design. When you see a design, like a really good image, you're like, dang, that looks cool as all hell. Then if you attempt it yourself, it looks pretty bad. And I know this because I've tried it myself. I see an image on Instagram. I'm like, oh, damn, that would look really good as a thumbnail. Then I try to do it. I'm like, oh, damn it. Oh, what the hell? And so it's just because in order to get that good, you have to keep doing it over and over and over again. Your website has to go through many iterations in order for you to look like a $20,000 speaker. The more you know, though, the less iterations you go through. This is why I keep telling people, like, if you're not in the Speak Pro Academy, you will have to go through 1,000,000 iterations before you even hit $100,000 versus when you join, you know what to do. So instead of going through 1,000,000 iterations, you only go through 1,000 iterations. So that's one of the purpose. That's the purpose of knowledge. If you don't have the information, you just don't know what to fix and all that sort of stuff. All right. Okay, so I guess we are good to go for today. So we will talk tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks everybody for showing up. Tomorrow, I don't remember what we're going to talk about, but I think tomorrow's going to be a very simple day, actually. And then if you guys have any questions, make sure you ask a ton of questions tomorrow. Whatever questions you have, just sit down, write some questions. Like, I'm going to ask this dude, I'm going to bombard this dude with questions. That's what you guys want to do, especially you Speak Pro members. What you guys doing, man? Speak Pro members, what you guys doing? Start asking some more questions, right? So let's see. Tammy said, so should I stay at the $5,000 mark until I change the website? Let's see. No. So what you want to do, Tammy, is so stay at the $5,000 mark, but also just ask for $15,000, right? Just do that. Just literally what I said in terms of what I did is you just say, all right, here's my fee that I always ask for, that I tend to get. Then here's the fee that I want to get. So let me just ask people this fee every now and again. And so that's what you're doing. It's like when people come to you, say $5,000. And then when another person comes to you, say $15,000. Then another person say $5,000. And another person say $15,000. And so you're just doing that back and forth. And before you know it, guarantee you're going to be surprised as all hell when someone says yes. You'll be like, what? That's what's going to happen, right? All right, cool. So let's see. Joshua said Speak Pro is your academy. Yeah, speakproacademy.com. That's the training, the support, everything. So if you guys aren't a member of Speak Pro Academy, it's literally, if you want to get booked on stages, join the Speak Pro Academy. I mean, everything in there, everything's there for you. The training, the resources, the email templates, everything is there. Literally all you have to do is implement. The only reason you would not get booked is because you didn't do anything. That is literally the only reason. It is impossible to do what I say to do and not get booked. Literally. It is almost like even a beginner, let's say someone literally just starting basketball, they've never even touched a basketball. And I say, look, man, just shoot, just throw the ball up 1,000,000 times. Eventually, you're going to make it one time at least, right? And so it's inevitable. The same with Speak Pro Academy. The only reason you wouldn't get booked is because you're not doing the work and you're not actually participating in the Facebook group. Like, you're not asking questions, none of that stuff. And the reason why you wouldn't be asking questions or anything is because you're not doing the work. And so if you do the work, if you just take the templates, you follow the process, you will get booked. It's inevitable. Then it's just a matter of, can you get booked to a point where it's like Dave Davlin doing almost $250,000 in a year, or Bob doing $200,000 in a year, or Betsy doing $30,000 in a month, right? So, or Maggie doing a freaking $25,000 gig. So it's like, then it's just a matter of to what level, like to what extent type thing. All right. So we are good to go for today. If you guys have any questions, make sure you ask them tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'll see you guys. Take care, everybody.